welcome, and so glad to see you guys made it out and you all braved the crazy weather that we've been having this week. It's supposed to be like 40 degrees today. But again, thank you. I'm Linda H., and on behalf of the St. Louis Philanthropic Organization, welcome. And to those online, we'd like to welcome you as well. As you guys know, we started doing capacity building work in 2020, mostly because the board wanted to take a look at how can we accept and help organizations to build their capacity to do their work. And we know that, workshops is a cost-effective way of doing so. It's a way of reaching a lot of people at different moments, but it also allows us to put in different topics and to do some work differently and to help you guys fulfill your mission. So today we're going to do our annual grant writing workshop. We've been doing this one now since December 2020. We actually kicked off the capacity building work with grant writing with the help of Mosaic Beginnings, who's been with us from the beginning. She helped us to also create the workshop series. And so we've been doing this now together for about 4, 5, 6 years, something like that. Yes. So what today we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the St. Louis Philanthropic. I have some exciting news for you about some changes that they're making in the grant process and the funding. Look at the eyes open up really. And then we're going to talk about a few of the changes that are also in the application. And after that, I will turn it over to Monique to do the fun stuff, talking about the federal and state grants, as well as AI and some organizational readiness. So you guys ready? Okay.
Our friends are able to hear very well. They cannot see the slides.
Okay. Yes.
And then we can share.
Okay.
I'll make you all.
No, it's great, but when it works, it works.
Right.
So while she's doing that, since it's a small group in the room, you want to go around and do an introduction real quick? Just your name and what organization you're with and whether or not you received a grant from the philanthropic before. Let's start here.
I'm Anna. I'm an admin assistant with the Conduit Patch. And I don't believe that we've received a grant in the past or even applied for one. I just started this fall, but I don't believe I've heard us from immigrant English learning program.
Hi, I'm Shoshana Stansel. I'm the director of the Washington College Prep Program in my role now. We haven't, so I'm excited to be here. Many have the misconception that because I work at WashU that I have but our program has access to the endowment and just unlimited funds, and that's actually not the case. We are a no-cost college access program for first year limited. Started right now by the cancer program.
Okay.
Well, Jeremy Pander, I'm the development with Peace Ladies, Girls and Boys Club, and we have been funded many times by SLPF, and you guys are an amazing partner.
Well, thank you. We've been talking on the phone a few times. Okay.
I'm Sophia Amaret, compliance manager over. I am not too familiar about cost funding.
Sorry. You're still cold, so I'm still trying to warm up. Sorry. My name is Karan Jones.
She, her pronoun. She, their pronoun.
And we received a grant from you all this year, yes. So we are.
And I don't believe in the last 5 years we have a really prior to mine.
Yes, power. So, Center for Reading, and we are very grateful for.
Yeah, I'm like,
Dr. Small, I love her. Yeah. And Brandy.
yes,
Yeah. And there you go.
yes, they're all amazing. Oh my God. Also, I've only got a month, so it's been short, but I'm like, I do know. I don't, if we've been funded with a maybe in like.
You have.
2 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm going to go and just talk a little bit about the philanthropic work. Anika's working on that. The philanthropic got started as a result of a lawsuit that was applied by the city against some cable companies. And lo and behold, the cable companies lost. And so the settlement is invested every year. And that is how the philanthropic supports its programming and operations. On average, we do about $400,000 a year in grants. And this past year, we're also been doing, as I mentioned earlier, some things around capacity building for the past 5 or 6 years. And every now and then, there may be some special occasions that are important to the philanthropic that they may respond to. For example, in 2019, they did make like 4 grants to 4 organizations that were doing some work around COVID relief and recovery and response. And so that's a little bit about the philanthropic. It has a board of 11 members. Those members are primarily city residents because the philanthropic got started as a result of a lawsuit against, leveraged by the city. And so the dollars are all directed toward improving the quality of life for city residents. So your organization could be in the county, but you still have to serve the city. Or we even have agencies that are located in Illinois, but they still serve St. Louis City. So as long as you serve St. Louis City, you can apply to the philanthropic funding consideration. Since 1984, they have allocated roughly $9.8 billion for programs and services in the area. The mission statement is pretty simple. We make funding available and capacity building to organizations whose programs and services improve the quality of life for city residents. Pretty straightforward. I always get questions like, what's the priorities? What are you looking for? What is this? We're looking for programs and services that serve St. Louis City residents. It's really that simple. So again, as long as your organization and program support St. Louis City residents, you can apply for funding. They don't have special focuses like, education or youth development or things of that nature. It is very broad in that sense. So that makes it very doable for the board to respond to a lot of different needs and programs and services with the applications that come in. If you go on the website at some point, you'll be able to see their guiding principles. The guiding principles were developed in 2015. We had a strategic planning process during that time. And so things like being impact focused, community oriented, racial equity, accountability, those are things that they wanted to make sure that not only embodied how they felt about their work, but also came through in their work. And so, and the ways that they operate as well. And so when you get a chance, you can go on the website and read a little bit more about the guiding principles. And you can kind of understand some of the perspectives of the board and where the philanthropic is moving toward. Our responsive grants. So they've been doing responsive grants now forever. It is the way that they do most of their grant making, is the primary grant making mechanism. You can ask for up to $10,000, which is the maximum amount of funding that you can record. As I mentioned earlier, it does support programs and services in St. Louis City and St. Louis City only. It also looks at programs that really, I would say they're very passionate about grassroots organizations and the smaller organizations that might not necessarily be on the radar screen of some of the larger funders, because they really want to make sure that they're equitable in how they allocate their dollars, and that they also give opportunities to those organizations who may or may not have as many chances because they might not be as well known. And so some agencies will say, well, we're so small, can we apply? Sure, you can apply, because they will take a look at your organization just like they take a look at any of the other organizations that apply for funding and support. Okay. Now, the one thing that you may have noticed is that we were a little slow to get on the online submission process, but as of 2024, we now only take our applications online. So you have to be able to go on your computer, access the grant portal, and in the grant portal, you will see you have to create your own account, et cetera. And so there's some very detailed instructions on our website that walks you through that process. We use what's called the GLM, or the Grant Lifecycle Manager. There's about 12 to maybe 14 or 15 other funders in the region that use that same process. And so it may look a little familiar when you see it, but if you go on our website, you go to the upper right-hand corner, click on Grant Portal, it pops up, you create an account, and then you go from there, okay? If you have gotten a grant from the philanthropic before, you've got your password or your staff members have changed, please, please, please do not create a new account. You know, send me an email or call me and we can get you into the system. What happens is when you create a separate account or a second account, they're not connected in the GLM. And so whatever information you may have had on your first profile does not automatically flow over to your second profile. Okay, so I just want to say that up front, and I may say it a couple more times before we're done, but please, 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 one account, okay? Now, some of the things that have changed with the application and with the process, and here comes the good news. In addition to the capacity building support that we do with respect to workshops, the board spent a lot of time over the last year or so, particularly this past spring and a strategic planning retreat, again, examining ways that they can support organizations. So effective December 2026, our cycle going into this next year, they are now going to be looking at flexible funding, which we now call general operating support, as well as targeted funding, which we know as program support. So in the past, the philanthropic has mostly done program support or targeted funding, where you had to direct your dollars toward a particular program. Now you can do a program or you can do general operating. And I know that's something that agencies have been asking for or inquiring about, and it is now official, and you will see it in the application. Okay. I saw people doing it in the back. Okay. You will also notice when you look at the application that there are some of the questions in there are different, mostly because we had to shift the application around because of the differences in the funding. So some of the questions are the same. I will say that when you look through the application, there are parts of there that says if you're requesting targeted funding or program support, you answer it this way. If you're requesting flexible funding, you answer it this way. And again, that was to accommodate the two different types of funding sources in there, okay? So now, the other thing I want to say is make sure that you read very carefully those particular questions because, again, almost every question in the application is required in order for you to submit the application. But we also want to make sure that if it's a question that you don't have to answer, that you don't have to worry about answering, but it does tell you to put like NA or 0 or something like that in there. So take a look at that as you're looking through the process. When you are going through the application, there are a set of questions that are specifically for if you're asking for a targeted funding or program support, okay? And those are the questions that you all have seen before, but they're just questions that we moved to a separate section. So if you're asking for flexible funding, you don't have to worry about those questions. But if you're asking for targeted funding, you will, okay? So I did make copies of the application. Hopefully you got a chance to pick one up when you came in. And you can also go on our website and you can also go into the portal. So there's different ways to get to the application, but you can see that when you go into the application. There are also questions in there such as this. For example, we're going to ask you to talk about your primary or basic grant classification, which meaning if it's the basic needs, if it's youth development, if it's education. That particular question has changed a little bit. So now if you are asking for targeted funding, you do that based on the program. If you're asking for flexible funding, you do it based on the organization itself, okay? So for example, you may be a health agency and you may, typically you would click where it says health because of the type of program, but you may want to do a youth development program or something may have happened and you want to do a basic needs program. So if you're asking for targeted funding for basic needs, you click basic needs, although you are a health organization. Because we really want to see how the dollars are being used that are being allocated because we track that and we look at that by program area, okay? So that's one difference that you will see in the application. Another difference in the application that you will see is we have changed the one question in there. There was a question that says, what was the impact of COVID-19? Well, it's been a few years since COVID-19 has come and gone, although agencies are still being impacted by it. We have changed that particular question to impact by external factors. So whether it's COVID-19, you're still dealing with that, whether it's the federal and state funding and some of the issues that are going on with that. If your agency was impacted in some degree by the tornado or some other external factor, if you had a windfall of dollars, that could happen. It doesn't always have to be negative. If you had a windfall of a grant and it has shifted how you do your work and has really grown your organization, you can feel free to share that as well. So you will see that in the application, there will be some different questions, but again, I tried to put in a very bold so you can see where it says flexible funding, or you can see targeted funding. If you have any questions, you can also feel free to either give me a call or send me an email and we can go through it with that as well. Some other things to keep in mind with the application is the budget. The budget this year has been color coded. And so I did make some copies of the budget form this year. So the columns are, there's a white column, a blue column, and a gray column. The white column is whatever your prior year budget, organizational budget was, okay? So as you are, since we're going into 2026, the white column would be your program for the year 2025. You know, you could be a calendar year, it'd be, January to December. If you are a fiscal year, it'd be whatever your prior fiscal year is. That goes in the white column. And it doesn't matter if you are requesting flexible funding or targeted funding, everybody needs to fill in the white column, okay? Then you have the blue column. The blue column is your organizational budget for the 2026, okay? So that'd be, if you are a calendar year, it'd be January through December 2026. If it's your fiscal year, whatever your fiscal year is that ends in 26 or begins with 26, you put that in the blue column. Every organization needs to complete the blue column, okay? Now, if you're asking for flexible funding, you're done with the budget. You only have to do the white column and the blue column. If you're asking for targeted funding, then you also need to do the gray column. That's the program budget, okay? Now, you will also see this year, there is sort of a cream color line in the budget. That is where the St. Louis Philanthropic request goes. It may be hard for you to believe, but there are some times we have agencies that don't put anything on that part. They may put it into the narrative piece, but they forget to put it in the budget. And so I wanted to highlight that particular line. It's a cream color line. So if you received a grant in 2025, you would put whatever your grant amount is in the white column where it says St. Louis Philanthropic Organization, okay? If whatever you're requesting for 2026 goes in the blue column on that same cream color line where it says St. Louis Philanthropic Organization. If you're asking for program support, same thing, it needs to go in the gray column where it says St. Louis Philanthropic Organization. Be mindful that whatever you put in the blue column for your request needs to match whatever you put in the gray column for your request. We have had agencies who may have put in their application that they're requesting $10,000, and then for the agency budget is $0, and then for the program budget, it may say $8. And we're trying to say, okay, how do we how do we get there? So make sure that all of those numbers match. So whatever you put in the narrative and the actual application needs to match whatever in the blue column. And if you're asking for targeted funding, it should be the same in the gray column. Okay, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just to make sure I understand correctly, the when would the funds be available? It would be yes. Oh, okay. So if it's so the funds that we're requesting would go in the cream row in the blue column, and then if it's for targeted programming, that number we're requesting would be copied into the gray column, and that's the only thing that would go in the gray column.
No, the gray column would be the program budget.
Oh, so if there's other funding sources for that program.
So all your revenues, all the expenses should also be shown there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions about the budget? I want to make sure, because we had quite a few issues with the budget last year. I know we had quite a few first-time organizations applying, so I just wanted to make sure we go through the budget a little bit more this go around. Any other questions about the budget? Okay. The other thing I wanted to point out is when you are filling out the application and you are uploading your attachments, please pay attention to what you're uploading. So if they ask you for the IRS tax exempt letter, that's what should be there. I've had a couple of agencies that, for example, uploaded their annual report that you sent to the state. That's not a document that has been requested, okay? And so this year, I really won't have time to go through and say, this is the wrong document, send this document, this is the wrong document, send this document. It really does help when you upload the correct documents the first time because it allows us to do our screening process pretty quickly, okay? The other one that you really need to pay close attention to is where it says certificate of good standing, okay? The certificate of good standing should not be dated before January 6, 2026. And that's really like 30 days before the due date because the application is due February 6th, okay? The reason is certificates of good standing they're only good for like 2 months. And sometimes we get certificates of good standing that may say December 2023, we've gotten some for 2016, we've gotten some for 2020. Those are expired and they're no longer legit, okay? So please make sure that when you upload your certificate of good standing that is dated, and you'll see the date at the bottom, is dated on or after January 6, 2026. Because we do look at those and it is part of our screening process. And what can happen is if we don't have all the required attachments, that could make a difference as to whether or not your proposal moves forward in the process. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me more about this certificate of standing? Is that for those who previously received funding from you?
Just everybody.
Everybody?
Yes. So if you go onto the Missouri State website, you can go on there and you can order a copy of your certificate, and it just says that you are in good standing with the state of Missouri. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for that, we will just have to work with our grants department.
Yeah.
You go online, it costs, I think, $11 with all of the email processes and.
Yes.
Thank you.
I feel like if we were under a fiscal sponsor, would they fulfill?
I'm sorry. You said if you're a fiscal sponsor?
It's organizations under a fiscal sponsor.
So yes. So I'm glad you brought that up. So there are a couple of different things. First of all, if you are doing a physical sponsor, they need to submit the application in your name with your information. And the reason being is some organizations might not have a 501c3 status right now, but they may get one eventually. If your physical agent submits it in their name, it doesn't track once you get your 501c3 status. We can't track whatever grants you may have received prior to that. So make sure that they submit it in your name. Now, we do need to have their information with respect to the letter, the certificate of good standing, the certificate of incorporation. Those types of documents need to be from your physical agent, but the program information, the information in the application itself needs to be about the organization, so that when you do get your 501c3 status and you do apply again and you do get another grant, we can track all the funding that you have received from the philanthropic. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Other than that, that's all I have. I want to turn it over now to Monique. Monique has been with us, as I mentioned before, since the beginning. Hence her name, Mosaic Beginnings. But no, I'm just kidding. But she has been working with us since then. She's been a great thought partner and a great intellectual partner with respect to types of programs and services that we are going to be doing with respect to the types of capacity building topics. She has her own consultant firm, Mosaic Beginnings. They do a lot of great work with nonprofits and other entities across the country. A lot of it is in fund development, but she also does things in governance and racial equity and a number of other different areas. And she will explain those a little bit more about what she does when she comes up. But again, like I said, she's been really good. As a matter of fact, she and I have not only worked very closely with every workshop, she's done every grant writing workshop that we've had. She's done the governance workshops, the financial management workshops, the beyond the grant workshops, and program evaluation. So that just gives you a sense of what her talent is and what her skill sets are and how great she's been for the philanthropic. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Monique.
I'm gonna come up here and everything that Linda shared with you all, as far as the application, she's also made sure it's explicitly inside of the application. So as long as you guys look at that, there's like bold, underlined everything. She just wanted to make sure everybody
had the opportunity to, get at least considered for funding. So I know it was a lot of information at once, but she's also put it in writing for everyone. Okay, so I'm Monique and I'm with Mosaic Beginnings, but I'm just happy to partner with the Philanthropic. It's been an honor and I hope I live up to what she just said. So we're gonna get started. You guys shared, I'm trying to see if this is working. Okay, yes, great. Okay, so I may have to go back and forth just because of how the technology is set up to be able to show you guys certain things on my laptop. But I wanted to talk about organizational readiness, and that's something that I know a lot of organizations need. It doesn't matter whether you're a smaller organization or a larger one. A lot of times there are challenges because we haven't really taken the time to just see where we stand as an organization. And I think I have a checklist, but I think I'm going to come back to that since I have to walk back there. I'm gonna do this other one first. It's kind of slow. Okay, this scorecard. So I wanted to do this because it lets you think about where you are as an organization. And so I know you guys have some paper and stuff like that there. Okay, there we go. So these are just made up points. But basically, what you want to do is look at each of these focus areas and think about your organization or maybe one program even. So think about whatever program you're thinking of applying for here or that you'd like to expand. Maybe you'd want to go for some national funding, and look at how well thought out and clear is your program model. Is it something that any funder can go in and they're going to see, these are your goals, these are your outcomes, this happens every Wednesday, this is occurring at this facility, this is who does it, these are the supplies that are needed, these are the best practices and the theories and everything that's supporting this. Is it super clear like that? And that, because that's what's going to get you those points. I also should say I reviewed for federal and foundation organizations. So I'm speaking about this from the aspect of a grant reviewer as well. And so you just want to make sure that that is jumping off the page. And I guess I'm just asking you guys right now to kind of do a quick little assessment of each of these on the paper you have, and then I'll hear from you guys. So then documented outcomes. So what have you all seen? So a lot of times organizations, again, this is whether they're large or small, and we have a variety of people in here. So I tried to make sure the presentation accommodated all different experience levels. But a lot of times organizations will have done wonderful work in the community, but we're not really tracking it. And we know that happens everywhere. And so we want to make sure that we've got documented outcomes. So for whatever program you're thinking of, do you have documented outcomes, whether it's quotes from people, do you have pictures, do you have some type of spreadsheet or something that says, we served this many people and this is the impact that it had on them. And I will also be sending these slides to you guys too. So I want you all to know that as well. You can still take pictures of whatever you want, but I just want you to know you will get these.
Thank you.
No problem. I saw that, I was like, let me share that. And so then also evaluation plan. I think that's something that is often kind of thought of afterwards, and really it should be thought about at the beginning as you're developing a program. And you want to think about that before it's time to apply for funding, because you want to know, how am I going to assess this? Sometimes we think, oh, we're going to do a survey, but evaluation is much more than that, which, like you said, we've done evaluation workshop before. I won't go too deep into that, but it's one of those things that as you're building your program, you want to think about, how would I assess this? Because maybe a survey isn't really going to tell you that story. If we just had Thanksgiving and all of these different families were served, they're able to say 3,000 families were served. You can't do that with a survey necessarily. I mean, you can, but it's not in that type of situation. It wouldn't make sense. So we just want to think about that. Okay, Linda, you got the slides for the Zoom? I think it's still on the, no, I'm good on this one, on yours. Okay, because they can't see these slides. We'd have to advance it on your laptop. Thank you. So yeah, you guys, ideally, this room would be that the people on Zoom could see these screens up here. So that's why we kind of were a little thrown off. So that was the technical issue. So yes, so the evaluation plan is something we really want to think about as we're doing that. Federal compliance systems. So this, of course, is just if you're going after federal funding, but those are, where you have to upload to their system. You want to make sure that you've already gone through, set up a profile, that you all have gone through their entire checklist, because some of the requirements there can take weeks. And then, when you are ready to go after funding, it's too late if, depending on the deadline. So, and I know that was something that people were talking about too. And like, I looked at all of your responses. And so a lot of people were talking about these deadlines are getting shorter and shorter from when there's an announcement to when it's actually due. And so the same with, whenever federal funds are being distributed, more often again, that's going to be a situation that you guys have to consider. So we want to make sure, think about what you guys already have in place. Development staffing. So we're getting money in because of grants, but we also need to make sure we have the people in place to manage them and people to help grow it. Because when funders are giving you money, they're also wanting you to be able to say, this is how I'm going to sustain this program. So if you don't already have development staff in place who can do this, which I do know some organizations don't, that's something that you really want to look at. Where are you scoring there? Budget sophistication. So that's more so looking at how robust is your budget? How well built out and clear is it? Have you accounted for everything? A lot of times with programming, organizations don't always think about the people with it. They're just thinking about what goes into the actual program. So making sure that that's very clear. And any of the other things, you may just go and pick up these supplies or those supplies, but making sure that that's actually in the budget. So sometimes we just do it, but we're not accounting for it. And so we just want to make sure we have the organizational budget, the program budget, all of that really well thought out. And like I said, even large organizations, I've seen that they are not in that space. They thought they were, but when it's time to apply for funding, there's a lot of work that goes into that. So doing some checkups a couple times a year would be good. Funder relationships, that's a huge one. So do you guys, because when we're talking about less funds available or things being more, the opportunities being more competitive, we really want to think about, have we established relationships with funders over time? Sometimes that helps you to know sooner about, what funding opportunities are coming that relate to the work you're doing. And also one of the things that attendees said in their registration was that they feel like there are going to be more privatized opportunities. And I can't say whether that's going to happen or not, but we know that that already does exist. So this will make sure that your organization has a relationship and knows and is able to be invited to apply. So just thinking about what do those relationships look like right now. And then the ability to produce compelling narratives. It's one thing to be able to just say, this is what we do, here's how many we serve. That doesn't really, it is competitive. That doesn't really jump out at people who are reviewing it. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, it doesn't mean it'll never get funded, because some of them do, but the ones that really do tug at the heartstrings and, get people to really think about the impact are the ones that really feel like you are speaking to them. They can envision this programming happening. And that's how we write when we're writing grants. Because if you think about it, if it's a national funder, I mean, even if it's local, they may not know you, but if we think on a national level, they don't live here in St. Louis. So they don't know what our community is like. They don't know anything about the Del Mar Divide. They don't know how we're one of the most segregated cities in the country and, what it looks like to be in the communities that you all are in. And so if you paint that picture of what your specific community looks like, that's going to, and how this impacts the people that you're serving, that's going to really stand out to them. They're going to make the connection. And so I will say there's one thing, and so this is one thing, I had the hardest time with this one grant recently for a client. And it was that they were going from a preschool classroom and a kindergarten classroom to 3 to 6-year-old classrooms, like combined. And I was like, well, what's exciting about that? Like, what's the point? Why would they fund this? And so I looked into it and I was able to find out all of the benefits of having a 3 to 6-year-old classroom, where there's the 3-year-olds are learning more from the 6-year-olds and the 6-year-olds are modeling and they're leading. And there's so many benefits. And the reason I share that is because I felt like a very difficult story to tell, because it's just like, well, we just want to remodel some classrooms and put them together. But once we were able to explain that, something that funder typically doesn't fund, they funded. So that's what I mean also by a compelling narrative. They can see the long-term benefit, because we even let them know what that means for them as leaders, as adults, how we're preparing them for that, so they can see the longevity. And then obviously records of past performance speaks for itself. So these are your points. Does anyone want to share? Are they? Might be. You don't have to. Okay, might be kind of personal. But, so I'm not gonna have y'all share, but just look at those numbers and then that kind of will let you know where you are. So I do have a checklist, but because of the interest of time, I will go ahead and just send that to you guys because we're gonna have a toolkit that we give you all. But the checklist just goes through things like, do you have your 501c3 letter? Do you have these different things? You know, so I'll just send that out. Yes, ma'am.
I know Ms. Linda said that the annual reports aren't necessarily something that we necessarily share, but can we like pull from annual reports your system program model and documented outcomes, or should we be creating something new?
No. That's what she's saying is that's not something they're requiring you all to submit to get their funding. So for instance, when they're asking for a certificate of good standing, some people have submitted the annual report instead. That's what she was saying. But yeah, you absolutely should use what you already have. That's perfect. Yeah, don't create more work. You already did it. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
Although I do think I'm
Good question.
No, both of those two things make sense. Thank you so much.
No, definitely. You guys stop us at any time, and if there's questions in the chat ever, I'm happy to answer those too. Linda always helps me with that. Please, yeah.
So when I'm thinking about all of this, everybody's organization sounds so amazing, all the great work. For the Washington College Prep Program, for us, we're trying to figure out how do we share the compelling story by helping the university understand the language that's used in certain spaces compared to their traditional language that they will submit for something else. So I think that's where we're trying to balance if that makes any sense. What I'm saying, like their language is very rigid.
Yeah,
right?
I've worked for them and other universities.
Okay, yeah, very rigid, right? But for our program, for the young people that we serve, that's not necessarily the language that we use. So how do we, as I'm thinking about all of these things that you're saying, how do we get the university to understand language that we need to use instead of their traditional language? Because even I'm thinking about, you talked about organized records of past performance. There's been a lot of transition with our program, even transitioning from one department to another, even transitioning with leadership, right? Or how can we write this amazing, beautiful, compelling story when some of that institutional knowledge is no longer there? So we're not necessarily starting from scratch, but just don't have a lot of that information.
So I'm gonna answer what I can. I think we're probably gonna have to have a more detailed conversation, but I do think that it's really about the language being community centered. And I know that in that toolkit, we can also make sure that we provide some of that to help guide it, because there is a marriage between the language that the university is used to using and community centered language. And that's not something that's foreign. And there are some parts even of, WashU that utilize that type of language. And so we can look at that. And then also, I know you're saying that some information has been lost. And so it really is important that we find a way to look at these transitions. We have to be honest about what's happened, but we also want to look at the strengths that come from this. And so that's what we want to call out, for funders, like, hey, this was a challenge and this is how we are filling that gap, or this is what we plan to do. These are the partnerships we have in place. And so that we're continuing to be able to provide that same level of quality programming. Yes. Okay, yes, sorry, thank you. So I was asked initially about whether we should use annual report data for when we're looking at like the program development and the program outcomes. Can we just pull from there, or do we have to create something new? And that's where I was sharing that we absolutely should use information from the annual reports that have all of that data and different information about the programming that's happened throughout the year when we're writing grants. We want to make sure that when we're talking about what our program looks like, we're using what we've already done to tell that story if we have that information. Then I was just asked from someone who works at university, their program has moved through different departments and some information has been lost. And then also the university, at least the area that they're working in, has not used community-friendly language. And so we're just talking about how we can transition some of the language that the university is used to into community-friendly language. And so we'll be sharing some of that in the toolkit that we share after this. Thank you for that. So I am going to walk back there to my laptop so I can show you guys some information on here. So a lot of concerns were about political funding, how politics are impacting funding. So I wanted to know what people have experienced when it comes to the funding landscape. These are some of the things that were shared. And so before I go back there, that's what you got before today. But you know, people were concerned about the abrupt cancellation of funding. That there's not really a lot of forecasting for 2026. Educational and community partners are beginning to charge a fee for programming that used to be just like donated programming. There's increased competition, shorter application deadlines. I think I might have put that. I think I put that twice. A decrease in funding, fewer funding opportunities, much increased competition. Okay, so I just want to make sure that people on Zoom see it too. So for some of these things, what we want to think about is, one thing I always say is collaboration, because I think we've gotten into this mindset of our organization has to be the one that goes after this funding. And we're really not going to get very far in a climate like this with that mentality. And I've been talking about it for years, not knowing that we'd be in this space. And so I think we have to shift our thinking to not just, are we going after this, but who are we partnering with because they have some resources that we don't. It makes for a stronger application and stronger impact in our community. Is there another organization, another partner that we know in the community who is better positioned to go after the funding opportunity and they can write your organization in? So I think having those conversations and looking at what that model looks like will be really essential sooner rather than later. Because then when funding opportunities are coming about, you all are going to be better positioned to get the funding than some other organizations that are just going at it alone. And that's what we want. So it may not be let's say it's a $500,000 grant. You all may not be getting the whole $500,000, but you might have gotten nothing if you didn't have that organization go after it and write you in. So maybe now you're getting 50 or 100 or whatever it is. And so we just have to kind of think more strategically about that. And think about where you actually need the funds to go. So when you look at your organizations, sometimes it's, our data infrastructure, like there's those things people aren't thinking about. We obviously know people are going to be the most expensive, but that's what we need. We can't do programming without people. So thinking about that, but then thinking about anything else that impacts your programming, all of the aspects of it. Is it electronics? Is it, are there other kinds of supplies, things like that? Making sure you think about that because there are so many different funding opportunities that maybe before you wouldn't even have considered, but they can fund those specific things where you're saying, hey, we have less funding in this space, but we know we need that to operate. So start to think about that. And this is going to be interactive, so I'm not going to just talk at you guys. So I have, activities after this. But with the changing funding priorities, we're also, so you don't shift your program, but you may have to enhance it. So a lot of times it's not about us doing something totally different. It's about how we're telling the story of what we're actually doing. So if we are, they don't want us to say that we're serving, underserved population. We need to be able to say that there are families in our community who have come, and they came to get food. We're, feeding the community. We're serving our community. Where we have to think of some other language there without using that exact terminology. And I did come up with a few words for that, but I think everything that I shared kind of goes into all of this. I don't think I have to go through each one, because I think that, yeah, I mean, like the charging a fee, I mean, obviously we can't change that, but that's something that we now have to account for, and we have to see where we can get funding for that, or if there's a way for us to maybe partner with some other organizations and do it, or is there something we can bring in-house? Sometimes you can think about bringing in volunteers, you can think about interns as well, depending on what the actual service is. If you can bring in college students to do that work and they can get their hours that they need to graduate in an area that you all, focus on, that's something I always tell people, because that's how you can increase your capacity, even when it comes to data entry, other things that are kind of more tedious, and you guys have a smaller group of people, because unfortunately, so many people are losing jobs. You want to make sure that you're still able to keep up, and so that's another way that you can do that, is bringing in students that they'll have the skills because they are at a certain point in their degree program, but it also doesn't cost money. So just wanted to think about that. And so keywords, this is where I do need to go back to my laptop. So I didn't put everything in there, but I did kind of just look up a few things that we can say differently. I did this in ChatGPT, yay. So we're gonna, since we're gonna be talking about that anyway. But yeah, so I put this in there and I just wanted to see like, what are some other terms that we can use that will be considered acceptable?
I will say it out loud because I apologize to people who are not going to be able to see this. And, so for instance, period poverty was something. That was weird. My screen is up. I'll just share it, and again, I'll send this out. But so period poverty was one that and people with our not being able to. So I saw that they said there's a lot of barriers, product access, things like that. Underserved, some approved alternatives, be historically underfunded or resource limited. Communities with constrained opportunities. So you see how they're like kind of just playing with the words. It's like, it's so hard. Yeah. It is. So yeah. So this was helpful. It's not new. It's not like perfect, but it does give you some of these other ways to say things. Like diversity, multifaceted, inclusive, broad range of lived experiences, varied perspectives and backgrounds, things like that, so that won't get flagged. Sought immigrants concerned, and a couple of we can say vice president. Where and newly arrived residents come up there. Because I don't know what the individuals about the US, but that's I think things like that, so they can get really creative. And then anti-racist, fair and impartial system, evidence-based practices and review. But yes, bias-free practices and equity, fair access for all, which is something we can do. And addressing barriers to all group benefits. So there's a lot more words than so different. And in the series, there's a difference in outcomes across variations in access and outcome gaps, things like that. So, and I'll make sure that that's shared with you all. So, I wanted us to do an activity and. Okay, let's see, I'm sorry. Oh, you guys missed all that? Okay, well, I'm not gonna go back through all that, but I'm sorry you guys couldn't hear me, I wish I'd known, I apologize.
But we just basically went through the ways that you can say some of the words and terminology differently, like diversity and period poverty and all of that. And so I was just giving some examples of when I used the ChatGPT to reframe that wording in a way that the proposals won't get flagged. So I was sharing some of those words. And what I will do is I'm going to send that out to everyone. So I'm sorry for the people on Zoom to have missed it. I would have stood up here. I apologize. I was at my laptop for that, but that will go out to you all. You can just see it's more words is what I was telling them. You have to describe it very vaguely. So you may have to use 4 words for one, but it'll at least make sure that you all are being considered for funding opportunities despite the current climate. So I do want it to be kind of interactive. And so this is called Reframing Under Restriction Lab, and it ties directly to the political stuff that we're talking about. And so for the people who are on Zoom, there is a link for this, and you all are going to be able to go in there and click on that. Let's see. So for this, we want to make sure that, I think I just put it in there so you guys could see it. I think that's what it was. But we want to make sure that you all are thinking about your own organization, think about one of your programs, and we want to make sure that you have a paragraph that says kind of, this is, what federal guidelines want you to say. So if you're talking about diversity, if you can't say that. So if it's compliant, it's going to kind of remove the essence of your organization's mission. Let's just even, if you want to just use a mission instead of program, if you want to do that and just write that down. What would you have to do to make it compliant? What words would you have to move out of there? Well, and your regular mission is already authentic, so that's fine. Because I was going to have you all do a program, but we're just going to look at the mission because I think that'll be easier. Yeah. So that's why it's written like this. We were going to actually look at your program. I think that's too much. So what would you need to do to make sure it's compliant? Oh, you know what? Wait, hold on. I'm lying, you guys. I did this already for you. There are, yes, because I this is it. Yes, okay. I was like, sorry, I'm ahead of myself. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. So we're gonna make sure that, so we have 4 of these options. So like you all, I would say do 1 at the table all the way over there. So this will be yours to do, that paragraph. 2 will be for you all, and then 3 will be for you all. And that should be in there for the people on Zoom as well. Okay, sorry, you guys. So what you want to do is look at what will make this language compliant, what will make it authentic, and then you want to see how you can marry the 2. And that's why I wanted it to be something that you guys are able to like kind of do together. And for people on Zoom, you'll probably have to just do it individually, but just look at these and just take one of the 4 of these on Zoom and do that same thing. Make sure it's compliant, make sure that it's authentic, and then make sure that it's married together. So good question. Good question. So I was asked what words are not compliant. So like we have LGBTQ communities. That's not something that's considered compliant for the federal government at this point in time. African-American women, even childbirth maybe, but we don't have to like focus that hard on it. We don't. But we're ensuring that women are able to.
I'll say women.
Right, you can't say women. You know what I mean? So it's things like, so we're looking at that. Underserved members of our community. So low income. So words like that, you guys want to be looking at, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but like that's how we have to kind of reframe our thinking. And so that's why I wanted us to put it into practice. So compliant would be not using those words. Authentic is here. And how do we marry the 2? So what are some other words we could use? And but only choose one of these. So for people on Zoom, only choose one of those paragraphs. And we'll give this about, you guys feel like 5 minutes is good? Or?
control everything.
Okay, we'll see where we are in 5 minutes.
I'm checking, so I have like 2 devices. So. Very. Okay, so what happened? Optimal goal. Oh, right. So, and I don't know.
Right, and you said, if it's not, if you have to use the word traditional, that's probably, then you probably in the right direction. Because I'm pretty sure people, especially those people, that don't, they want to get higher. Yeah, so like, I think that's.
You got the number? Oh, wow. I'm talking all up on that. Luckily, I have people. Okay, so what?
I think if you say, I think that we say that in the society, maybe it is. No, this is black, but like vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? Because like you're in the LGBT community, actually you're in a vulnerable situation. Yes. So like, so maybe we could say vulnerable population. Since, and I like since 2002, but maybe 2025, so like for over 20 years. Make it authentic and impactful. So for over 20 years, our organization has been committed to serving vulnerable community members. And we recognize child power. Okay. So like we strive to remove barriers for all. Yeah. So we're basically removing. Okay, I'm gonna write it down. Yes.
Yeah, but she was just giving them out for the last 20 years. And then say over. And then say for over 20. For over 20. It's really
I'm gonna
one
need
year
for y'all to
over.
quit saying that because that's your graduation.
Over 22 years, we have.
Mind your business. Yes, it's been a long time. I was a 992 child.
I was too.
So.
Okay, yeah, vulnerable.
To remove a barrier.
Wait, say that again. Not for, right, for vulnerable. We're compliant. Right, yeah, it's gonna be flag, so. Deal with it every week, but
I guess. Okay. How we doing?
Say radical, and then maybe eventually you'll find out. Or you also can start. Yeah, exactly. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna be able to say African, I'm not gonna say black. Just to address. How, yeah. Who are all doing. Oh, federally qualified. So like people. Yeah, I was, yeah. And so you could just aim that organization and provide these kind of services within the. It's a lot more words. Then I'll go in and because I know characters, here's you use your exact language. But I feel like if I stop it the first one, you need to refine it. That's especially a minute. I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah. I mean, it's how do you decide? Sounds like you're using money. Like last year, I actually went to the workshop.
Transformation. Spirituality. Oh, Lord. Listen, I feel you. If it starts with trans. No, I'm not. No, but no, but it sounds really wonderful. What's the word? Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not. I was like, look, I was like, this is life. That's what Tracy said, can't say. Yeah, you get real. I was like, this is you. No, that was. And you know that ain't changed. Okay, that is literally what the last part of it is our basic that part, yeah. No, but other than that, and it sounds like listen, you want to say mission statement already for the community for Missouri community, all that. That would be it's like the other system is, yeah. Oh yeah,
mean, for like, yeah, but like, that's what.
I didn't know you.
I know that.
I will share what I.
Okay. No. You said that. I love it.
All right, so we're gonna
I
go ahead and
love
come together.
No, we got our representative.
Oh, we got a representative? Okay,
Yes.
so I'm gonna grab this mic. So first, before I do that, I would like someone, okay, well, I wanted to make sure that someone on Zoom can, I'm gonna call on Sophia. Sophia, if you can unmute, please, and speak so we can see if we can hear you in this room, because I'd like to be interacting with you all more.
We were still in it. I apologize.
Oh, no, I'm asking, one of the attendees on Zoom to unmute. I guess she's speaking.
I am. Can you hear me talking over the Zoom? Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, because I'd like you guys to be able to come off mute and speak. So it's not like you have to just only type something. You guys should be able to interact with us as well. So that's something we wanted. Okay, did you have a chance to go through this? Did you want to share kind of what you may have thought through with this? No pressure, but.
Oh yeah, I was looking at the pregnancy nonprofit statement, and I said just kind of for the first sentence for like the compliant one, many women in our community are statistically at risk for negative health outcomes during pregnancy and are dying at disproportionate rates during childbirth. And like I feel like that to me like checks off some of like the like DEI identity boxes that, like theoretically aren't permitted. But then I know you were even kind of saying that like there are executive orders to the effect that say you can't like help women, period. But if you're a nonprofit that deals with pregnancies and that kind of like the only thing that would make sense is for AFAB people to be who you serve. But yeah, that was kind of what I had. But it just made me feel like how hypocritical some of the issues we're talking about are.
It's a lot. And that's the whole point, is really to think about when we're going after these opportunities, how much do we have to reframe our thinking and our wording? And I'm not sure what AFAB is, so I wanted to.
Oh, like assigned female at birth.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I'm not good with acronyms. Okay, got it. Yes. So that's good. And one thing I talked with a group about here in the room was that, the thing we're trying to do is get beyond the like bots that are checking this. So I don't know for sure, but I don't think that it's the reviewers that are saying you can't, we don't want to see the word woman. It's more so when you are actually putting that through the different portals and all of that, the different systems, we don't want you to get kicked out. So I think that's the whole point. And then you all actually get a fair review process as fair as it can be. So yeah, thank you for that.
Do you find this type of nuancing to be federal funding?
Oh, hold on. Let's see if this mic works. I want to see if Zoom can hear you guys. They can hear.
Do you find these types of nuances with the wording and everything more important for federal funding or as much for private funding?
Federal, but
Some foundations that are aligning with that standard, so we definitely want to make sure that we account for that.
For me,
I think for me, it's that when I rephrase some of these things, it feels disingenuous to the mission and vision of the agency I represent. So if I can't say, marginalized populations, equity, all of these words that actually are the heart of what we do, I don't know. Then there's a whole stream of consciousness of what in the heck are we doing? So I think that's what I'm struggling with, just in terms of being disingenuous in order to get funding. Humanitree, thankfully, does not have government funding at this point. We stepped away in 2018 because we have rigorous programmings, we drug test, and we do exit people from our program who aren't committed to changing their lives. I just can't even fathom, and I feel for any agency that's having to really, really change their verbiage and change their mission in the heart of what they do in order to meet these guidelines. It's frustrating.
No, but I think we all are feeling, we're feeling the same thing. And I want you guys to know, it's not about, and I get it, it does. However, it's worth it because you get the funding and you still are doing the exact work that you need to do. I wanted to make sure I say that because it's not like you're now not doing it, but it is hard.
That's basically what I not wanted to say, but I think we talked a bit about the balance between staying true to who you are and being creative and using your agency to like get the actual funding to do the thing that you want to do. And I think, because you're here, Tracy, no, like we have to look to like some of our ancestors probably for answers to these questions. Because like I think about like how would a Fannie Lou Hamer, she would have wrote a grant in like for the Mississippi Freedom Project. You know, how would she have written a grant? So like, oh, she would have. She would have. She would have wrote that grant to get that money for the people. Exactly. She would have been creative, and she would have used what she had. She would have used what she had to get what she needed for her people. So, I know, and we should. Yes.
Back to those times. So
right. Yeah.
We are slowly. Quickly.
Like 50 years in a year. Oh, and then I'll come over here. And you guys on mute on Zoom, feel free to unmute, jump in, and interact.
No, just was going to say, I think for most smaller or community or private organizations, it's kind of like you can kind of tell what their vibe is by their questions and having those relationships with them. And I think corporate ones are going to be more something you might want to think about this a little more, obviously. But I think most of the smaller organizations are you're gonna kind of know if you have the relationships and even from the questions that they have, and if they have any of this included still, if they're asking about equity initiatives and things like that. I wouldn't water it down very much for most, maybe some corporate ones. I mean, we don't do federal funding either, so, but yeah.
Oh, that's a great point. Thank you. So yes, I think that makes sense. And I'll get back to my thoughts. Here you are.
Actually, Sarah covered it. I was going to point out that the corporates are much more quickly getting in line with the federal no word list, whereas small community foundations are tending to be a little bit more open in the partnership.
Relationships are important. They're extremely important. And there are a lot of organizations that, like you said, are still using those terms and they're fine with them. So some organizations are choosing to only apply to funders that allow them to use that language. So that's another thing too.
I think as awkward as it can be to, change this language up, it's also interesting and I think thought-provoking and helpful to think about other verbiage because it makes me think, what do I really mean when I say diversity, with regard to my organization, and to kind of think beyond these words that we think we all have a shared definition of, but maybe we don't. So in some ways, I think it's valuable to think about what we really mean and to be more, use more robust language sometimes.
Good perspective. I mean, I think, because that's an exercise I think that it would be good to, do regardless of what they're saying we can or can't say. So that's true. Just to think like, what is diversity? That means a lot of different things depending on who you're serving, what's needed. And is there anyone on Zoom that wants to come off mute and say anything? You do feel free. Okay, so that was an exercise that I know was very difficult, but I'd rather you guys do that here and start thinking about it before you go back to your respective agencies.
So I do have say 7, we'll go down the middle, 7. Like 7-minute break, just so everybody can kind of get up, do whatever you need to do. And, next part.
Yes.
Like,
Okay, because I'm also, so I asked them about my mission and I was like, this is pretty good. That was my work. I was like, this is right, but it's right. And I'm not this.
How do I be consistent in that organization? How do I get the things I need from these 7 board members? Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I did that basic process. Like being like, we got it, go grab it, and we'll figure it out. It was those grants, especially really freeze happen, freeze thaw, whatever. It was like, where they like shoot all the dollar bills into 2, and you're just trying to catch them. That's exactly what it was. Like, we got like 7 awards, 3 of them paid us, 2 of them eventually reimbursed us. 1 of them left us $20,000 playground. I So, thanks, Mason. Federal free involved. And I hand off the follow through. So much federal state. There it is. Make sure we know that every not overfunding a position or that's instructive. Yeah, I mean, I need to update. Keeping the dog out. That's part of the envelope for government.
Yeah, I gotta figure out how to.
I don't know what promotions do, I just like to say the word purpose.
I sure does. I've been saying this whole time. Maybe I should put my scarf on. Maybe I'll be warm.
It's so warm. I was surprised by how warm.
I love cornmeal. I pay cornmeal.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I'm working on now. I've been trying to find like shirts before. But no, I haven't found any shirts in my like people sometimes like I have that as like a body shame thing. No, it was not. And I'm not wearing their own that. Well, I don't.
yes.
Like I said, I think someone else stuff to be, but I'm not gonna be there. I'm not gonna wait. Look how good I am. I'm saying out loud, I'm saying what.
Say that out loud.
Here for the, one of the. This was for next city. I was looking ahead.
This almond thing. I think it's basically an almond tart. Not tart, but almond.
Everyone come back together and, we got 2 minutes, so we'll come back together.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
And look at the time too.
Oh, I'm already happy. Look, I'm in stone and learning how I don't know where I'm happy.
I love it.
But no, Tracy asked me a question like, what do you all mission? I just read our mission for 18,000 pounds. I'm like, oh, no wonder we didn't get some grants. So it's like equitable.
Did they tell you that? Okay. I got you. I know more.
That's true. No, it was like I think it was like a festival. So like, I'm sure.
Okay. So I'm like, okay.
I'm sure because our mission that is basically it says like that's like 8 number word.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing. And you know what? Jerome telling me
Okay, so we're gonna come back together and we're gonna talk about using AI strategically and responsibly. We're gonna walk through a few things. I have my phone because I have my cheat sheet on here. So, yes. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So remember, you guys, if you're gonna say something, we're gonna make sure we use the microphone so that people on Zoom can hear. And Zoom, I want attendees, if you would please remember, if you have a question or a thought, you can put it in the chat, but you also are welcome to come off of mute and ask your question because we can see you when you do that and we can hear you. So just want you to know that you don't have to just be silent and type. So, okay, so we are looking at using AI strategically and responsibly. And so I know some of that has already come up in our conversation today. And, you know, we really want to make sure that what we want to do is like, we've already started talking about, you know, well, in some of these groups, let me go ahead and say it, because we've talked individually at the different tables, but for people on Zoom, we were already talking about ChatGPT and how can that help you when it comes to like grant writing. And we will talk about that a little bit, but we also want to make sure we get on this responsible part. But with ChatGPT, it helps with grants because you still want to use your authentic voice. Like that's important. So I think where people are, not even I think, I know where a lot of people are going wrong is that they're just putting, you know, let's say a question in there from whatever the RFP, the request for proposal says, and then they're like, give me an answer for this. And so ChatGPT is going to give you an answer. But that's just a cookie cutter answer. It doesn't have anything to do with your organization. So what I personally do and what I am telling people to do is that you need to be able to put in information about your actual programming. So like you ask that question, but you also are able to put in you know, this is the name of our program and this is what we do. This is what we, you know, you have your blurbs that you've already got together. You can put that in and the ChatGPT can help you with making sure that that is responding to the question that you're being asked. You can use it to, you know, limit characters. It shouldn't replace humans. It shouldn't. It's never going to be quality. You want to always double check it. There's links when you're going into, when you use ChatGPT, it pulls up the information, but then it'll have a link. You can look at the sources because you always want to check those sources, make sure that they are valid, they're trustworthy sources. Because there's a lot of stuff on the internet and ChatGPT is just going to pull whatever it has there. So before you use that, make sure that it's accurate. Were you going to say something to or no? Okay. So you got to stop me at any time. But yeah, so that's important. And let me make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself again. So I know I asked when you guys registered, I was just asking like, you know, what do you all use? I mean, literally overwhelmingly, ChatGPT was utilized, which I'm not surprised by. Then Gemini and Copilot. I think Copilot was actually, no, okay, well, it shows. So Gemini was more than Copilot, but that was also one that kept coming up. There were several smaller ones that came up, but it was maybe like one or two people said them. So I decided to just focus more so on ChatGPT, which is what I used earlier when we were talking about the different terms that you can use or not. But I do want to share that between ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot, what's important is to note that there are times to use each. So like with ChatGPT, it does do a lot of things. You know, you can put Excel spreadsheets in there. You can, you know, ask it to create a spreadsheet, create a PowerPoint. And it will do it, but there are a lot of limitations with that. And so like your document may not come out the way you wanted it to, or if you upload that Excel spreadsheet, it'll ask you like 50 million questions before it actually like does what you needed to do with that Excel spreadsheet. So there are different ways you have to organize the documents. And I know we don't have time to go through all of that at this moment, but there's different ways you have to organize those documents. However, with Gemini, that's better for if you're working with those types of documents like Excel spreadsheets, Word docs, PowerPoints, things like that, because it's just geared for that. And Copilot, I don't remember the last thing about Copilot, but I do have that whole list. I didn't put it in my presentation. So what I'm going to do is send that out. It'll be a clean list that kind of gives you the difference between them.
and when you can consider using one, or you should consider using one of the other ones, just so that it's not frustrating, honestly. And I mean, the whole point of ChatGPT is to make sure that you are able to be more efficient, and, you know, just really to increase your capacity. So I know I had someone asking me earlier, you know, or saying to me like, oh, I'm glad that you're talking about this and comfortable with it. And I'll be honest, I wasn't, you know, I was not comfortable a year ago. And I spoke about ChatGPT last year when I did the presentation, but I did it because that's where we were going. And I mean, I wouldn't have been a responsible presenter if I didn't. But it was just hard for me because I'm like, well, wait, I'm old school. Like, it comes from my brain, it goes to the paper, I do my research, and I'm gonna find all this information. You know, fast forward to now, you know, there's so much happening, so much going on. Time is just very limited. There's less people to do the work. One of my clients, she's the one that told me, she said, if you're not using ChatGPT at least 15 minutes or whatever every single day, then you're doing it wrong. And she's one of the smartest people I know. We've worked together for like 5 years. And I was like, okay. And she's like taking her own little like courses. I can share with you all what she did, which in case people want to kind of take those, because she's now is knowledgeable about everything in there. But she's right. And so we have to kind of go that direction in ways that make sense. So, you know, there have been quick turnarounds, like we were talking about with deadlines. And I've had that happen too with this client. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's not realistic, but this is so important. Well, that's where ChatGPT has been helpful, to be able to put the questions in there, put the information in there, condense it, make sure I rework, you know, which I saw a lot of people saying how they use it, rework the language and all of that so that it flows better. But it's without us taking as much time to think through it, but still always being authentic. Like I mentioned earlier, we have things that other cities or states don't have, where we're very much, you know, segregated. There's the Delaware Divide. There's so much rich history, the Ville, you know, all of these different things that are specific to St. Louis. We need to add that type of information, that voice in there. We never want to lose that human aspect of it. So yes. So we're not gonna do this activity yet, we're about to, but when we think about AI, I kind of want to, let me go through real quick and see. I'm gonna start, I should have put this in a different order. So AI risk management framework is really important. And so we have to look at all of the different pieces. Of course, we've got what's governing, what we can say, what we can do, and all of that. But we also have all of the information that we need to manage. So the information within our organizations, like what we share, what we don't share, you know, how we share it, if that's going to be, if that's going to now be a part of the internet. So we need to think about the different documents that we're uploading to AI. So to ChatGPT for this example, and is that exactly the document we're supposed to upload? Because there's some information we think isn't as personal because it's not like it just lives there on your computer. Once you enter it, they now have access to all of that and it can go wherever it wants to go. So we just want to be mindful of that, and we're going to go through some of this. So I wanted to go through some of the HIPAA information related to this, and I have my little tab. Hold on now. Where's my tabs? Sorry. 'Cause I had a lot of here we go. So when I'm thinking about HIPAA as it relates to AI, there's a lot of emerging information. And so you'll see PII, that's personally identifiable information, sensitive personal data, and then there's also an application of this for nonprofits. So I'm gonna go through this like in more detail. So personally identifiable information is things like your names, even your geographic information, obviously, like if it's, you know, your address, if it's your birthday, discharge dates or whatever, phone numbers, emails, social security, we know that, full face photographs, anything that really identifies you as a unique person is considered, you know, identifiable information. So then we also want to look at the there's federal regulations that are also evolving really quickly around AI and the data privacy piece that's kind of becoming the HIPAA aspect of AI. So they are putting those measures in place, but it's still evolving. It's going to be happening quickly. So we really want to think about how we use this. It's like, so privacy is now like, obviously it's not just about compliance. It's really about us being like morally and ethically responsible for what we're sharing, because it can be our coworkers' information we're sharing, or those persons who we serve, because we might say, let's upload this client list, because then I can just say, hey, AI, count how many people, received these different, toiletries, and how many people came to programming last week. But now, if their names and their ages and their zip codes are tied to that in that document, that's now out there, in the AI world. Sorry, you guys, we're on Zoom. We're looking around a little bit because we've got window washers here distracting us. And so when we talk about sensitive personal data, that's that second one. We're talking about, so this is how the two are coming together. It shows up across like the White House and all of that. And it includes personal data. So that's anything that identifies you, but it also includes your race, political opinions, religious beliefs, if you're a part of a trade or a union or anything like that, your sexual orientation. I mean, again, these are things that people are capturing. A lot of agencies capture them for different reasons, but that information is considered sensitive. So when we're, going for grants, we want to make sure that we're, again, not pulling those documents to be able to say, oh, we have this many people who identify as African American or, this sexual orientation. Criminal history, financial account information. Then the sensitive attributes is another piece under that. It's so many different things, but and all of it goes together. But like disability, socioeconomic status, like of course we have to track those things again to document that we're serving the right people. But education level, household structure, even something that I think we probably wouldn't even think about. Like there's one adult and 5 kids or whatever it is. That's something else we want to be careful with. But then when we look at the nonprofits, like, because we serve all of these people, and like I just said, we have to collect that information for multiple reasons, we need to consider that, and we need to consider all of those pieces where some organizations may not. But we also need to add in considering donor details. So, sometimes we're just like not thinking about that. This is a spreadsheet we use. We need to think about the health or trauma history, financial struggles that may be going on even within our own organization, and maybe we're trying to tell that story. But again, once we put it up there, your organization's name is tied to that. Some sensitive information about whatever you all are going through at that moment is now out there for everyone to see without you all having an opportunity to frame it in a way that would be more public facing. Yes, hold on a second, let me give you this mic.
The way that I use this, just like for a grant report last week, was I think this is more fine to do. Like I needed to kind of aggregate the areas of origin we serve immigrants and like the zip codes. But I just used ChatGPT and I just literally like copy pasted just the cells of all the zip codes of our clients and just said, group these and say how many were in this zip code. It had no other information tied to it. I didn't upload a whole thing. And then same with the country list. So, and I didn't say, these are our students. I didn't tie it to my organization. I just said, organize these. So that might be an easier way to do it quickly and easily without, sacrificing.
Yeah, and that's called anonymization. I guess I got that right. So that's exactly what you want to do. Make sure that anything you're putting in there, you've made it anonymous so that you can do what you need to do, but you're not uploading that. That's part of what this activity that I have is about. Just so you guys, it's not hard, but I just wanted you all to actually think about that that piece of it. I don't think we need to go through all of that. That's a lot. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the activity that I mentioned. It is called Should We Ask AI This? And it is a sorting game. And so if you're here in person, you have some cards on the table. And then if you're on Zoom, there's a link. And so can I look at yours if you don't mind? Thank you. So there are 3 categories. And on Zoom, you guys have a link. And when you go in there, it's kind of got like a little mural. And you can use the Post-it. So if you look at it, so when you look at it, it's got these 3 categories: safe to share, depends or needs revision, and unsafe to share. And so those are the 3 categories that you want to move these options up. So then you have these other options that are, I put them down. There's things like uploading board minutes, uploading the board members list,
summarizes internal HR complaints. And I think that's, draft a grant narrative about our youth program using anonymized outcomes. Write a donor letter using this quote from a teenager. And then refine our strategic plan goals using this public facing summary. So you're gonna take each of these and put them under where you think they go. For people on Zoom, if you want, you can, if you want to move them, I mean, I know there'll be a lot of people in there, so I don't know if that would work. But if you all want, you can at least look at what options are in front of you and think about, if you want to even jot it down, think about which category on your screen. And I will ask a couple people to share some. That's what I want to do with time. Okay, so we're gonna just take about 5 minutes. This should take that. What we're gonna do is you guys are gonna put them where you think they go, and we're gonna talk about why they should be there or some other things you need to consider about maybe why we should use them. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay.
But not all.
Right, that's pretty unsafe, right?
Days later.
Everyone in Zoom should have
You agree? I mean,
process where you think things should go. You don't
taking all the information.
donor letter.
Take out the name or we can just have the actual ones.
I see Zoom is doing, people are doing the group effort. I like that. So thank you guys for making that work. So, I don't know. So, I can't, I'm a so I was just like, I know, right? I was learning because this is
I didn't even know what it was. Because I get them when people go off, maybe get them.
It's in everything.
That was like, I was just reaching over on it. I was like, oh my God,
No, for real though.
And thank you for, I know some people may have moved them to another spot, that's fine too, because everybody's gonna have different thoughts about how to but not get out of state work. So I appreciate you guys, just, have a good conversation on this. We're good, we're good. Oh, yeah. Yes, I'm, yeah, I use it. But I have one.
Yeah, I bring everything.
I never want to staff.
All right, so I want to hear what you guys are thinking. Okay, so you guys, can everybody just quiet? You guys, can we quiet down a little bit? Thank you. Because I want to make, okay, no, it's cool. You're good. No, I'm a talker, so I understand. I just want to make sure I want to make sure Zoom attendees can hear. I'd like to ask a Zoom attendee to come off of mute and share share one of the, you guys, I can't, sorry, I can't hear myself thinking. Yes, so Zoom attendees, I just want one person first, and I'm gonna ask someone else to do it too. One person share what you moved and under what category you placed it, so that we can have that conversation. I can go back to my computer and call names, but if anyone wants to just jump in, that'd be great. I know, that sounded like music. Okay. What is this? You guys, I need one. Okay, so Anne, Anne didn't mean to come off. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna choose someone. Okay. We're gonna engage you, Zoom.
All right, does that better?
Perfect.
I moved the board or the strategic plan into public facing. Is something that we could put into Chat GPT.
Thank you, share. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Does everyone kind of agree with that? Yeah, we ain't put nothing in.
Sorry, with the strategic plan.
What did you say?
The strategic plan into public facing summary, since it's going to be public facing when we're done.
Yeah, that's accurate. That's correct. But I want to hear what you think. That's correct. I want to hear what you are thinking of, because we're not putting anything in. And now, thank you.
To this one specifically, and as Karen said, we were pretty skeptical on AI's use in a lot of these things. But I think as it relates to the public facing summary of a strategic plan, like that should be a strategic process where like employees and board members and stakeholders are all collaborating and bringing this perspective. And by, like you might get whatever a tight paragraph very quickly, but there's no process that's happened with, the players involved. And if it's not, something that's been generated by people working together, it becomes a document on a shelf very quickly, as opposed to like that living, breathing document that guides our work. So that was you might save a little bit of time, but we don't think it's as effective a process to use AI.
Okay, so that's a good point. I see how you guys are thinking about that. Okay, so yeah, you were thinking you don't want to put that into AI, and like, because it can give you just a generated this was more, is it safe to put in AI? Is it safe to use in Chat GPT because of like the information that's in there? So that's what it's public facing. It's safe to put that in there if we wanted to. That's why it's helpful.
I still mistrust the underlying of how these community systems are created to be created. Like
you've actually gone through. So the idea here is that you've actually gone through the strategic planning process already, and you all have your internal one. It's like Jane said this, Joe said that, the finance people, the program. So all of those things are there. But then you have the summary. It's the report afterwards that is like for anybody to see. Like, we've gone through this. Here's our strategic priorities as a result of this. That you see a lot of organizations put out there to edit it. Yeah, it's already like edited, summarized. It's only those key things that came from that process that are being shared in the public. So they know the direction, because you have to, as a nonprofit share, they need to know the direction that you're going.
We're a biased table.
Okay.
We're biased. Like, Tracy's a writer, I'm a historian. Like, he's what'd you say?
I'm a writer and development person.
Yeah, but you said you're
I'm just a crusty old man.
Yeah, crusty old man. But okay, I get it now. Because what I'm like, when I heard that at first, it's like, oh, so you're just gonna put like your thoughts in there, and then AI is gonna generate your strategic plan, which people are, which I'm sure people are doing. People are doing, yes, because it saves time.
But you don't get a quality product.
No,
You
you're
don't,
right.
like, you don't have those nuances to your point, because we were to use the strategic plan, that's something we were talking about earlier. If we were to use that, and we're like, we just wanna create it, we don't know anything about your organization, the culture of it, go ahead.
And
Here's on here. If I can, okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Zoom friends.
Your bias table.
We're the bias table. How y'all doing? No, but one of the table is no word now. But maybe with strategic plan goal, I understand that if it's public facing, that it's safe, but we couldn't use names, right?
They
could not use names. So like, I can't say Tracy said that we need blah, blah, blah.
It's all identified and all that.
Got you. So yeah. Okay. So so it's more about safety. It's about safety rather than like the actual generated content.
Exactly. Because we're not using it to generate, but to you all's point, that we wouldn't want to develop a strategic plan that way, or policies or anything that we can even give us a framework and template. But we still need to put all the nuances about our very own organization and our protocols, and we need to take that into account for it to be effective. But a lot of people product, but it's not fault.
That's true.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
So yeah, I want to ask if there's one more person on Zoom who would like to share what they move and under what category. It's okay. That's how we're doing it. It's fun. Okay. If someone does want to come off mute, that would be great, but I will go ahead and ask the people in the room. I just want to make sure we're engaging you all. So I'll start with this table. Okay, I'm looking. Okay, so share with us maybe two of yours that you all have. Who's your spokesperson? Oh, yeah, that's a point. We haven't heard from you yet, so.
Oh, I don't mind. So under deepens needs revision, we put we'll use this one, write a donor letter using this quote from a teenager. I think it definitely, we all agreed that it needs some review, especially with the teenager being a minor. One thing we just want to make sure that we remove any identifiable information to be able to help generate that letter. And then unsafe to share a quote. Oh, sorry. Pause. Conversation in the room. Does anyone have any feedback, or recommendations, or guidelines for what we just discussed?
Oh, I got other thoughts. No, when we were like in the beginning, when we were figuring out what our position was going to be, we did say,
when we were thinking about what our position was going to be before we took a stance, we did say like, yeah, need revision, but not putting their name. Maybe if you put it in, you get the revision, you get the letter, you come back out, and we send it out. If you want to quote their name, then yeah. But that's what we're thinking before we moved everything to unsafe to share.
So no, that's
Don't use their first name.
The other thing that we shared about this particular one is there might be the donor information too. Like it's easy to focus on the content, but it's like, oh, is your donor's name and address and all that like at the top of the, potentially. Although it might not be, but that was another, it might not be in there. Yeah.
But just, it's
someone might though.
Something to think about. Haven't been thinking about that.
Yeah. They're saying it's something to think about because, it sounds like to us, just makes sense not to do that. But the whole reason this even needs to happen is because not everybody is thinking about that. And it's not intentional. It's just, we're just moving quickly and not processing what we're actually putting in there and the long-term impact it can have. I had a little bit of a different thought on there. I think what you all said was right. So that's why I think it is a depends and, needs to be revisited or reviewed. But my thought is that
if you don't have a something, sign where it says, And that's. But you may not. Like, I didn't think about that, but my mom was like, if you're going. I think about, yeah, out, yeah. That's my thought. Yeah.
But everyone's not thinking about that and they're putting it in there.
So, yeah.
So both of those are correct.
Is that to get a good you know, ultimate letter, you need a lot. I mean, you can anonymize the quote, but like your point, like you need a lot of context for it. You know, it's not just a teen in our program, it's a teen who is from the Ville, who has had this lived experience, whose family has had this experience. For you to get a letter that is really amplifying the voice of the client, you need more context. And that's where the more things you're starting to put in to AI, the more you're like, oh, whoopsie doodle, I crossed this line and now this piece of information is out there and can't come back. And I don't know, I think I've just probably watched The Matrix and Terminator too many times. I don't want to put things up into the machine.
So you want one other one you're gonna share?
I mean, I'll be honest, because a student just sent me an email saying that they need a letter of recommendation by December the 8th. Baby, I don't even know what today is, but it's not going to happen. So I'm going to have to definitely, and hear me out when I say how I use Chat GPT, okay? No, because I'm not a writer, honey, but I can speak all day, every day, but writing is not my jam, right? But for the letter of recommendation that the student is going to ask me to write, I'm not even going to put the student's name in there, but I may say that they're a part of National Honor Society. They're a great person. They're reliable. They're dependable. Like just something just to get me started, right? So then I can be able to generate a letter, because I honestly just do not have the capacity to sit and write, because I struggle with writing. It takes me like a good I've been up since 6 this morning just to send 2 emails to get here on time. Like that's how long it takes me to write. So I'm like, Chat GPT, help me out a little bit. But I need no shade, because I need to talk to y'all, because I'm like, help me out with my writing, because that is one area of development that I definitely need. So we're gonna talk afterwards. Yeah.
I can be the Moses, we can be the Aaron.
We can do that.
Like it's no shame or anything.
No.
Realize it, you know, and
it scared me the first time I used it. Let's just say that I was like, what? It literally scared, like my heart was about to jump out of my chest the first time I used it. I was like, oh no, okay. But anyway, so the other thing that we were gonna do, is the upload the board members list. We know that's definitely unsafe, so no one's gonna put that in. Which I don't even know, why would you even upload your board members list? But what is Chat GP gonna do for us?
it just depends on what you need it for. So it may be that there's a certain format that
Send down something to the board.
yeah, well, to some degree. So I'm hearing it public, but the list itself of the names and their organization or whatever.
But like their email, phone number, other stuff.
It depends on what the
list has.
So yeah, there's different lists. I'm sure there's one that has all of their information.
On their
one. So that's a depends. It depends on what's on the paper.
Oh, sorry.
Like some of the grant applications we've done, they want you to put what zip code their residence is in, because they're trying to see, I guess, where they live in the community. So maybe just do that one yourself.
Yeah, and that, exactly. So yeah, that's the kind of thing we want to make sure we're mindful of. So thank you guys for that. I'm gonna ask for like one more table, and then there's one more activity that I wanted us to do, because it's gonna allow us to just kind of think about what goes into these when we're talking about not only organizational readiness, but like using grant writing as a tool for us to be able to like enhance our programs and our organization. It's, again, everything's kind of pretty easy, but I just want it to be something we're able to apply and start thinking about here and take back to our organizations and think more clearly about or more deeply about. So I do want to ask one more. I don't know which table wants to go. Okay, we'll go over here. Okay, I guess we
So we put this, I'm trying to remember what our conversation was, the draft a grant narrative about our youth program using anonymized outcomes data. And we felt that was safe because, you know, right. There's no like identifying information, right?
Okay.
No, we just also discussed the pros and cons of your chatbot knowing enough about your agency to write something cohesive about that. So how much do you actually share with it and how much do you not share? Because mine could write a whole thing about humanitarian right now, you know? So, and if you're trying to be so anonymous that it doesn't create relevant content for you, that's not helpful either. So just knowing where those boundaries are with what you put in. And
that's that human aspect that we said you have to have further information. It's not private, you know, it's just they think that someone else can give it.
I will write the thing. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I use it more for I will write the thing and then drop it in and say, you know, rewrite this with a more professional tone, or, you know, it's 6 a.m. and I'm trying to send an email to the board, rewrite this email to the board, blah, blah, blah. But I have never thought about anything living out in cyberspace. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, kill
Right. Everything, they know everything about it. They do. They hear us right now. This is really me. The no word.
So kind of to jump off your point as well, like if you do put in like anonymized data, but ChatGPT already knows you and your organization, it's going to tie what you think you might be anonymizing to your organization and therefore non-anonymizing it, right? No.
Well, they can hear me, they just couldn't hear you guys. You're fine.
Well, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. That was it. Yes, but so no, that means it's already identified. So like, you know, if they were gonna have ages in there or, you know, names or something like that, it doesn't have any of that. They have the programmatic detail that you need, but they can't now, I mean, unless you already uploaded the same document with all of your information, they're not gonna be able to identify it. If it's never been put in there, anonymized document, they're not gonna be able to. They can't take two anonymized documents and then you put in or two yes, and then bind them together. So the question is, can you take two anonymized documents in chat together? Yes, but still they're anonymized. So it's about what the document looks like before it has in it before. And then if it didn't have any of that information, doesn't mean they're not going to tie any of your organizational information to large characters. Right? So we can't just then all of a sudden. That's why it's all identified. Let's say like if you upload some birthdays, you don't say who they are. Or another document. So here's our 5 of our clients. And then that in some way, like, okay, here's 5 clients, here's 5 birthdays. I mean, the question for people on Zoom is that, like, if you have something that's like 5 birthdays and then 5 clients and they're separate, but you enter both of them separately and come together. I mean, I guess depending on what you say, it's really how you say it. I don't think they're just gonna automatically say, now you got 5 clients. If it's help. Yeah. Okay, one in anyway.
Yeah, I think even in the case of that example, you're putting in personal PII to even get to the point where it might combine those.
So just get that off.
Yeah, so as long as you avoid that in general, then you won't be fine. Thank you.
So I'm gonna really quickly just say, I'm gonna look at some of these and just say real quick. So that we already went through. And then we did that one too. Okay. And uploading board minutes to generate a report. That, I mean, as long as they're public facing, but I mean, it depends on what board minutes you're uploading, you know, what was the meeting about?
And, because it is gonna include so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that, and, maybe some information that should be private. But, I do believe that nonprofits have to make those board minutes, available. But
You have to make them available if they're asked for.
You know, I mean, I think there's a difference between things that are publicly available if somebody asks and begins a process versus just things that now you've put out into the internet world that is now accessible to anyone. Just gives me more pause around the board minutes. One, because again, like, yeah, they're public facing. That's the same thing I had with the board list. Like, you know, again, without addresses, even just the names. Like, of course, it's part of who we are in the community. But like I said to our table, I look up the 990 of every funder and every board member of people we're processing with. If somebody wants to do that to us, by all means, Google us and pull up our 990 the same way that we do with funders. So.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. That's helpful. And we also need to think about that with this. You also may want to redact some information before putting that out there. So, you know, because it might be, they do give out something personal during that meeting because they're just talking with each other. We don't want to make sure that that's something captured that goes out to the community because that has nothing to do with what they need to know about the organization. They might be talking about their grandbaby that was just born, and that's not everybody's business. And so those kind of things we just want to be careful to remove. Thank you. Okay, the last one, thank you, is summarize this internal HR complaint. So, no, okay. So I think I don't think that's wrong. I think if there's no identifiable information and you just wanted to like summarize it so it makes sense, it's clear, that's okay. But if it's got people's names, it's specifically, you know, calls out some things that are going to identify who those people are. Because it may be this is the incident that happened. It doesn't name it's this role, it's this blah, blah, blah. It might, but you're definitely walking the fine line. I would err on the side of caution, like everyone has said, and you know, it could be a no. You said yeah. Yes, yes, it's okay. We're all learning. That's all. So, exactly. You just said, yeah. He just said we need a policy, and so that's a great thing that you said that. That's the thing. This is evolving so quickly. Like ChatGPT came in and just took off, and so just like I was saying with the federal guidelines, we're talking about the privacy that is evolving, but that's something that organizations haven't gotten caught up on. There's all of this once we know like the true effects of it, then we can say, oh, we're going to develop a policy, and it may have to continue to be revised. But that's a good point that organizations should start doing that so that people know, because you don't know what you don't know.
And ChatGPT can help you write that policy. I've used it to write policy just for child protection policy, the basics of it, and then I can go back in and nuance it. But for those things, when you're an agency of 5 people, 4 of whom are in the trenches walking with families and helping do that work, and there's one person doing all the other things, I mean, it has helped me revolutionize the way that I'm able to lead the agency, and not just because, oh, now everything's, you know, done through chat. I love writing my own stuff. I'm a writer at heart. So, but in the cases of, oh, we need a child protection policy, let's see what's out there. It's been incredibly helpful for that capacity building for me. So now I know to be a little bit more safe with it though.
And I think, and that's the thing, is that it's supposed to be used as means to generate a template and to pull in resources and then you can build it out.
Kind of related to a few of the thoughts that have been expressed. I think another consideration when using AI is even if it isn't personally identifiable information, it's worth considering that since the info is often being used in other places on the internet, once you put it in there, that info can often come out without the additional context. And so you might want to be careful about what you're saying about your agency, what you're putting in, because that might be taken out of context in the way that it is then presented.
That's exactly what we're talking about. And I was like, well, if your agency is going through something, you want to practice certain way. You want to be careful with what you put in there to generate that response. Because if it's not written for like public now it's out there, like you get what you need out of it, but not everybody else can see. So yeah, so no, I love that. Thank you guys. So from here, I just wanted the next thing, I'm gonna skip one of them, but the next thing is that I really wanted us to cover, I'm looking at the time. We're at time. Okay, well then, that means we can't do that. So I do want to say, so what I will send out though, the activity we were going to do, and my daughter wanted me to tell you all, my 16-year-old, she wrote the cards and she did the little poster thing. So she's like, please tell them. So yeah, I appreciated her. So I told her I would tell you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I will let her know. She's like, you're going to tell them, right? I said, I will. So yes. So I will, okay, I will. Thank you. But yes, I will make this activity was just more so to go through and think about each of these and like what it takes. So when we're talking about data and evaluation, it's like, well, what do we really need? Because you want to see where your organization is. So the idea was, here's a green post-it, here's a orange one. And like, would you say we have some gaps here, or we're good in this area? Just to really do your own kind of assessment. Because when we think about data and evaluation, people think about a person who has that background, which is great. But are we thinking about the systems and the infrastructure that we have? Does it match up? So anyway, there are those things. So I can find a way to put that in the toolkit as well, so that you guys can walk through that on your own and be able to kind of make that assessment. Because I think it's going to just better position your organization to see where are our gaps. Because when we start writing grants, you start seeing like, oh, they're asking me for this, we don't have that. Well, that's not something you just ignore. That's now what you use to kind of grow and build, and you start looking at best practices for that. So I will end there. I always have more stuff than needed. I don't know. But I appreciate you all for the conversation and for having me, and reach out anytime. So thank you. Thank you, Zoom attendees. Don't log off yet. We're about to close out.
So I just have a couple of comments because there were some questions that were asked of me during the break. And so I just want to cover a couple of things. And there were some questions also in the Zoom chat. So the applications, as you all know, are due February 6, 2026, 11:59. Please know that if you have not hit submit by 11:59, the system will not let you submit it, and then you'll just have another application you can use for next year. You're right. You get a jump start on the next year. Okay. The board will be meeting in mid to late April to make its funding decisions. And so you should know sometime in the middle to latter part of April when the letters go out, what is the status of your application. The grant cycle is basically based on your organization. So if you're asking for a grant and you wanted to cover January 2026 through December 2026, although the decision is not made into April, it's still retroactive and it will still cover, you can still use part of that grant to cover expenses for January, February, and March, So just tell us what you want, what period that you want the grant to cover. It has to be no more than 12 months. It could be anywhere, because some of you are also on fiscal years, it could be anywhere from January 2026 to June 2027. Because like we have some agencies that are in the middle of the fiscal year right now, and then the new fiscal year will kick in July 1st of 2026. That's why we give you an 18-month window, but it has to be 12 months within that window. Okay. Someone also asked about the number of applications we normally get. Since going online, it has increased. We typically get somewhere between 120 to 130 applications submitted. When the board goes through its process, they probably fund around 75 to 80 applications. I will say that the board has been having some additional, they had a lot of conversations this year. One conversation is that they were probably looking at making larger grants, more so than, because they have a really big heart and they really want to try to fund as many organizations as possible. But given the changing dynamic, the change in the philanthropic landscape and some other things that are happening, they may be moving more toward making larger grants. They may make fewer grants, but there'll be larger grants. And so keep that in mind as well, because the competition, as you can tell, is going to already be kind of stiff, because they typically will receive anywhere from total request of 1.1 to 1.2 million, and we have $400,000 to allocate. And so it's already 3 times the amount of money that's available for allocation. And so keep that in mind as you are doing that. Someone also asked me about the grant amount. You know, it's a maximum of $10,000. Ask for what you need. Question was also asked about, does the board give you less than what you requested? Sometimes, but again, it depends upon, you know, how much they're wanting to give out, you know, what the other organizations are doing. But by all means, ask for what you need, because they really want to know. And there's a question in there for organizations that are asking for targeted funding that says, if we can't give you what you're requesting, what's the amount that would be doable where you can still maintain the integrity of the program? And that's not to say that they automatically default to that, because they don't. But I think it's helpful for them to understand what the impact would be on the organization, because they recognize that sometimes you will have to adjust the amount of people that you're going to serve. You may have to look at the types of services that you're going to do. You may have to take a day of services away if you don't have other resources to support the program, because they could not give you what you requested. So there's a lot of different things that go into their consideration when they're looking at awarding grants. I will also say, when you fill out the application, when you get to the end, there is a section that says verification of your address. Please make sure that whatever address in there is the correct address where you want the grant to go to. Now, sometimes it could be a PO box, or sometimes it could be a different a program site, but whatever address you have at the end of the application, that's where the grant is going to go. Okay, so be mindful of that, because one year we did have an organization who had a garden, and she mistakenly put the address of the garden at the end of her application, and we were trying to figure out where the check went. And so I hope they didn't compost it, but so we had to stop payment on that check and reissue it. But just be mindful that whatever the address is, that's where the grant will be going. Okay. And then the hours, my office hours is, I'm typically in the office on Mondays and Thursdays all day, and then Friday mornings. However, beginning with the grant cycle, I do check email daily, because I also want to make sure I get back to you as soon as possible if you have a question about the application or the process or something of that nature. And so I will be checking applications in the system, because I can go into the system as well. Shouldn't have told you that, but okay, now you know. I can actually go into the database and kind of see who is opening an application and kind of where you are in that process. And so if you have a particular question that you want to ask me about it, I can go in there and kind of look at it and talk you through it as well. The email will be in the slides that we send out for this, but it's support@stlphilanthropic.org. Okay.
Can I say something about, so just real quick, I know you were saying the number of organizations that apply and then the number that are awarded. And so that's something we talked about earlier, was the competitiveness. And I just wanted to say that really think about this, because there may be 2 organizations that are serving women and providing the same services. But think about what makes your organization unique, because you want to give yourself that edge. So I just wanted to put that out there, because sometimes people are just used to telling their story. In this season, really think about what's going to make you stand out. Is there a certain way that you approach this? So there's certain other things that you provide outside of the other supports and whatever, however you approach it. So just think about that for whatever you do. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, how, with the no words with, with you all, is it like, should we remove the numbers that are on the sheets? Like, as we were talking about the wording.
I didn't catch that question.
Okay,
chat.
Oh, in the chat, okay, yeah. But you heard her question?
Yes.
Okay, those words, I thought was fine with all of that.
I would say that when the Philanthropic had its strategic planning earlier this year, their position has not changed. You would see in the application that it does ask a question around racial equity and opportunity. And so I would say that for the Philanthropic, you don't have to worry about not saying those words. Okay. If that's the community you serve, that's the community you serve. None of that has changed for us.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. And the question in the chat was
There's another one
to repeat the deadline.
Yes. So the application is due February 6, 2026. at 11:59 p.m. It has to be submitted electronically. And again, now I do notice sometimes people have issues with the technology. So if you're, heaven forbid, up late that night and you're trying to get the grant in, and you're pressing the button, and you run out of time, let me know, because I'm actually monitoring that. I will be monitoring submissions on that Friday. So if you're having an issue, you can submit an email and I will see if I can work it out for you. But again, the sooner you get it in, the better.
And did you have a question? I see you on those, I don't know if you want to first time on you.
Yes, I wanted to ask, well, I mean, Annie's Hope is, again, so grateful for your support. And because we have already received it, do you tend to fund the same organizations in subsequent years, or do you try to focus on new ones, maybe every other year policy, or what can you say about that?
So the Philanthropic has a policy with a small p, where if you've gotten a grant 2 years in a row, you can apply the third time. So for agencies that have gotten a grant in 2024 and 2025, they cannot apply in 2026, but they can come back in 2027. There are some organizations that, have been funded multiple times, and then sometimes they might not get funded. And they always call me and say, well, why didn't we get funded? And there's a lot of different variables on there. They also like to look at, opportunities to fund organizations they don't have a relationship with. So it's not that they're looking for new agencies to fund and not fund these. They're looking at the programs, the services, what you're proposing to do, and they really are not looking at, well, we've already funded agency A for 4 years. Let's not fund them anymore. If they like the program, if they do a program, if you've been able to have an impact, if you submitted your reports on time, and if your reports are documenting that you're having an impact, they will still consider you the program.
So it's a policy with a small p that after 2 years you're not allowed, or is that a hard and fast?
Oh, that's hard and fast.
That's hard and fast. All right. 2 years, and then you skip a year, and then the following year.
And again, that's because they don't want organizations to become overly dependent on their funding.
Absolutely.
It's more of a discipline issue. But again, it's really looking at, you got funding for 2 years, you take a year off, but then you can come back.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions?
Anybody on Zoom got any more questions?
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much. I hope you guys have an awesome holiday season, and I look forward to getting your applications next February. Thank you.